Welcome back to another Forge Not Born podcast. I am here with Adam today, going through all things nutrition. I'm very excited to go through this. It's a topic I think doesn't get enough love in the fitness space at all. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Adam. He's going to tell me a little bit about his origin story, how he came through, how he got to this position where he is, what he's been through. So yeah, Adam, the floor is yours.
Appreciate that, mate. Genuinely, really, really buzzing to be here. Thank you very much for having me on the show, and I think it's really cool. Obviously, as you said, mate, my name's Adam Glover. I run integrated nutrition. I'm a performance nutritionist, and have been doing this now probably for the past 6 years, full time. Been doing it for just over a year now. I left the army in January 25 after serving for 15 years, and yeah, it was a bit of a change, not being used to how civilians work. Obviously, you've kind of gone through that as well, so I think that's why we kind of connected. Um, but yeah, so yeah, nutrition for me, mate, kind of it it came about early 2015. I've been a soldier for 5 years. I I'd very much figured out that okay, there's more to be done here if being a good soldier. There's only so much you can thrash yourself. There's only so much you can do all the CrossFit wads or Insanity until your eyes bleed. If anyone remember those DVDs, um, there's only so much of that you can do, and actually you need to look a bit deeper. And I started out looking for my own knowledge because I mean it's worse now than it was then, but there was no solid information. Like there was like now you can go on Instagram and find somebody screaming about bread's gonna kill you, inside 5 seconds.
Gary Brecker talking about seed oils or someone else, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like walking through the yogurt aisle in Tesco's, gobbing off about a certain kefir or something. You're like, can we all just take a break?
Yeah.
And that really resonated in the sense of I wanted to learn myself, and I was like, I want to know. I don't want to do guesswork. I want to understand physically, to as much detail as I want to learn, what makes nutrition tick, and that's why I kind of started to look into it. And I remember initially just being completely lost, like, dude, I'm a knuckle dragger, right? Like I didn't do well at school, so the like first thing I'm learning about is like chemical compound chains of like amino acids, and I'm like, sorry, what's this short chain fatty acid you're talking about? I don't know. What's these molecules? I don't know what that means. Like,
Yeah,
it's a
when
nerd
you
thing.
start
Why
to
am I looking
realize,
at
yeah,
this?
when you start to realize that nutrition is mostly biochemistry, you start going, "Oh, God damn it!"
Yeah. Like, here's me thinking I'm just been smashing protein. I'll be good.
It'd be a lot better than a lot of people out there, man. So how
Yeah.
did you get into the military? What age did you get in? What did you do?
Yeah, so I joined them. I was army mad as a kid, right? I used to steal recruiting books from the library, collected little commando comic books. I just like where I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland, if you can't tell from the ginger beard. Um,
Those
but
genes only work for certain people, man. That's not me.
but yeah, I always knew I was going to join the army,
Yeah.
and I ended up joining the military police just because my old man was military police. And I joined pretty much as soon as I could. 17 and a half years old, I walked into that careers office and went, "Come on, I want to do this." And obviously, the time I joined, very prevalent was Afghanistan, and like how that all shaped people's lives. And I knew that the probability was I was going to go do that. And I was like, yeah, cool, go do the thing. Let's be the guy. And so I joined the military, 17 and a half, or first applied, 2008. At that time, there was a waiting list, right? Especially for the job I wanted for the military police. They were like, nah, mate. You can do that, or you can go join the RLC as a driver. I was like, no, I want to do military police. You're not filling your quotas on me, buddy. I
At
want to
least
join
you're
the military
smart
police.
enough to see that problem. Yeah, no offense to anyone who is in the RLC. Obviously, we got good mates in there as well, but
Yeah,
we can always play that internal kind of banter. You
yeah.
saw past them. You're like, ice. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, when I walked into the careers office, I made a reel about this the other day, and it actually got. I was really surprised it got the most reach or comments or
Relatability.
whatever. Yeah, relatability. I walked in and it was a parachute regiment full screw and a Royal Regiment Scotland full screw, and I said I want to join the RMP, and they said get the fuck out of my career's office. Like, I was like, I didn't realize at the time why that was such a problem because obviously I was just naive. I thought, oh, cool, close protection. At the time, I
Mm.
thought they still did dogs. I thought they did, police bikes and all. I was like, that's gonna be cool as fuck. And yeah, just didn't pan out that way.
Completely wrong end of the stick. Like, did
Yeah,
not have a
yeah,
clue.
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, man. So obviously you join, you get into that role, and you were there obviously for 15 years. So talk to me a little bit about what you got up to in those 15 years, man. Obviously we know at that 5 year point you started getting into nutrition, but from a career perspective, how did everything go?
I was really lucky, mate. I had a really from when I look back at it now, I had a really high caliber career. I did some cool shit. I worked with some really good people. I'm not for a second saying I'm anything special either. By the way, I'm like I said, I'm just a knuckle dragger who's done some stuff and cool. The so deployed operationally all over the world. To weird and wonderful places like a lot of people, right? You end up have these pinch me moments. I remember at one point in a country in the Middle East just going, how why am I here? One of a 5-man team just at reach on our own. I was like, this is like movie shit. This is cool, and I've been very fortunate to do lots of different things. I've done the UN job out in Cyprus, which was the biggest gift of my life. Like it was like 6 months of just cheers easy. I've done the close protection gig as well. Uh, Working in that world, I was surrounded by some of the best soldiers I've ever seen, like from all walks of life. Very fortunate to have exposure to these people who've taught me a lot. Across the years, I deployed a lot, a lot, and it took its toll. I was fine. Like, I just get to pack a bag and go. And that's why and I'm sure you're able to, is like just throw it in a bag and say, yeah, go do whatever needs to be
In
done.
that big black duffel, and your
Yeah,
day
yeah, yeah.
set and you're off.
Black grip. Yeah, yeah. That's it. Just do the
Yeah.
do the thing, and that's what you're living out of for the next however long. But it took a toll on my family. Right. I'm married. I've got a 9-year-old daughter now, and at the time where I punched my ticket to sign off, my daughter was 7.5 or 7, and I'd missed half of her life through being away, and I was just like, I can't keep doing this. What am I like? I can like if it was just me, I'd be like, yeah, sweet, cool. I'm gonna
Hmm.
go play Cowboys and Indians, but I just knew that. Do you know what? It was time to come to the end, and I left having made the mediocrity of middle management, and I spent more time behind a desk than I did doing soldering. And I was like, do you know what? 13. If you went back to 13-year-old me and said, "This is what you did," he'd think it pretty cool. Like it's not the best
Mm.
by any stretch of the means, but yeah, cool, awesome. So I figured
Well,
it was the time for
yeah.
change.
Define like what are the best, man. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
it's so contextualized, right? Because you'll see every SF in every country in every world claim they're the best, and like you'll claim every unit inside of those SF units claim they're the best, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
what metrics are you actually defining that by, right? Because for you, you probably said, you know what, I probably had the best experience I probably could have and did some really cool shit, right? And
yeah,
I come out in one piece. Like, I got and all the rest of it, health still intact for the most part, I'm sure. Like all your
mm,
legs, all your fingers, all your hands, right? Like all that
yeah,
shit. So I'd say that's the best result you could have hoped for, considering especially where you were in the world, right? And I'm sure you know that some people weren't as fortunate to do that. So I think that's a level of gratitude and perspective on that, right?
yeah, definitely. I think, and again, very like you said, they're very very fortunate. Um, I have unfortunately lost people in both combat and non-combat, and the toll that takes, and you see people like their whole lives change for injuries and stuff like that. I am very lucky that I did a vast array of different things from all the way down to general policing, meh, up to close protection, weapons intelligence, EOD stuff where I supported in that, like, and all the way to the other side of, oh, I'm on a UN mission and I'm going to go to the Hilton for a spa day, like, like, so
Most
you look across it.
Bakshi deployment in the world if you got to do that. That waiting list for Cyprus was ridiculous.
Mate, it was class. It was
A
class.
little bit different now though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's lots going on.
Lots going on in the world now, isn't there? Jesus. Yeah, you better
Yeah.
check those reserve papers, yeah.
I don't know whether this is going to land well
Say
for
it,
the
brother.
podcast, mate. the stuff I've seen online over the past 3 days from
It's funny.
people living in 5-star hotels. I
In
honestly, I
Dubai,
think I
yeah?
saw, yeah, and I won't name names, right? But I saw somebody who'd hold himself up in his toilet. He had a ring light set up, and he was getting all. He's like, oh, I'm like, "Man, you're in like, like, will you just please stop?" And then there's the guy who went on the LBC News channel or whatever. He's like,
Mm.
please, can we all just take a breath? Like, it's not your like I'm not for, and this isn't obviously this podcast, but it's debris. It's not it's broken up bits falling out of the sky. Like it's very
Yeah,
different
people are
to
claiming they're in the middle of a war zone. It's like, no,
yeah,
you're still pretty safe, mate. You had some debris come over the top, and then unfortunately that's caused the fire and some damage, and hopefully not too many people got hurt during that. But yeah, the it's funny when these people come out into real light and they get. I think that's quite funny that even if it was anyone from the fitness industry or the online fitness industry, when they come onto that and they get shown to the rest of the industry, like, and they then see that, they're like, oh my god, that's pathetic. And like some people are calling that out. I've seen that a little bit on social media as well, where they're calling that
yeah,
out. So you did some
yeah.
cool shit, and at 5 years you started kind of looked at nutrition. What was your entry pathway into that nutrition? Because I remember what mine is for bodybuilding, and it was someone had a copy of Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. And I knew very, very little about that. I knew a lot about Arnie because my favorite films were like Commando and Predator and all the rest of it. So that's hilarious. When I read that back to back, like 768 pages, whatever much it is, and going into all of that of what to try and eat, and we know that the science behind that nutrition is extremely outdated now, but it's in a really good direction, if that makes sense. So that was my pathway getting into nutrition: the chicken, the rice, the porridge, the protein shakes, all the rest of it, right? And to be fair, that built me a really good starting place where I was training 4 or 5 times a week. I didn't skip legs, unlike some individuals I know, enabled me to build these chunky tree thighs that I have now, which now I have the problem of trying to build the upper body to match the lower body, which is a great problem to have as a taller guy at 6'4", but it's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was your entryway into it?
So I around 2015, I became really not obsessed, but I was like, I need to be the best version of me right now because I don't know what's going on and I don't know where my career is going to go, and I need to start dialing the needle. I started CrossFit for my sins, right? I started CrossFit, and I saw people thrashing themselves like twice a day, 7 days a week, and eating salad, and then wondering why they were injured constantly. And I'm like, that can't be right. Like I knew nothing then. I was like, that can't be right. And then so that's when I got into like, oh, sorry, I watched Pumping Iron. Like I saw 27 eggs a day, and I'm like, right, okay, cool. Is it stream? Is it this? And I remember listening to Ben Coomber Reindeer,
All right, yeah,
um, podcast by Ben Coomber, who runs the BTN Academy and Awesome
yeah.
Supplements.
I did his level 2, I think, off the top of my head, level 2, level 3, whichever the foundation is.
Yeah. And so I started listening to him talk, and then there was this guy. I can't remember his name, and he went on. He did a guest spot, and he does like ped use in like for the police, like where he goes in and he analyzes like batches and stuff like that to understand where it come from the illegal like distribution side of it, not
Mm-hmm.
average Johnny user in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke for 90 minutes on all these different things. I was just captivated, and he started talking about like just general nutrition. I was like, okay, this is I like this. I like this. I like to understand. And
Mm-hmm.
the more I started to play around, I very much started to see the benefits. Like simple stuff now, like, you know, having some fast acting carbohydrate before training and like doing that on company fizz in the military before battle PT on a Friday and thrashing it and be like, yeah, look at all this energy I've got. Whereas the correlation of my peer group, they're all dying because they've just turned up from the mess and they've, still, I'm not saying I wasn't, but do you know what I mean? Like just smashing. And it kind of gave me that
There's
loop.
still tagged up, just having a full English breakfast, wondering why they're moving sluggishly.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was
Exactly.
very performance based then, yeah. Like it was like I need to perform better. So a lot of people will be looking to try and perform better, just like you had that first instinct to. I don't think it really matters in much too much to career standpoint, but obviously in the military a lot more physical. If you run a physical job, you need to be able to perform, but mentally you need to be able to perform. You know, the crossover, I think of that. I think of like doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, like yes, military personnel, but like even to a certain like construction and stuff like that, like you need to be able to perform. So when we're looking at like how to perform better from a nutritional standpoint, how do we go about that?
See, I listened a long time ago to you know, have you heard of Fuel for the Work Required?
Can't say I have, no.
No, so it's a Fuel for the Work Required is how I base my mantra of performance nutrition coaching. Okay, and it's a paper that got put into an essay, into a dissertation, and it was used really effectively. And I listened to it on like an audio because I couldn't be bothered to read it. I was like just talk in my ears.
Audiobooks are my friends as well.
I don't have time, mate. Simple as that, right? But my one of the main lines in that paper, because I could talk about that paper for a whole podcast episode, right? I'm not going to, but one of the main lines is the difference between good and great is consistency to the basics, time and again. And I think so many people are looking for that magic pill, that secret hack, the thing that the elite are doing, and and again, not calling myself one of them, but having worked around people who operate at the highest level to see what they do when it comes to everything, there is no secret ingredient. It's just they do the basics so rigidly, so consistently that it's boring, but they make that marginal gain. They make that every day. There's always like 1% better every day. That's so for me, the place where I look at with anybody's nutrition is what's the foundation? And I don't mean foundation as, ooh, this is protein and you need to eat it. I mean, what do you do 90% of the time that we can quote unquote optimize? We can make the best version for you.
Mm. Yeah, interesting point there because I made this point. Well, I will be making this point. I have made this point many a times about making sure that you get those foundations in before you can optimize anything. It doesn't matter. Like even to an extent, like I was like, do pre or post workout carbs really matter? And I'm like, well, yeah, they do, and they can, right? But if you're not eating enough protein or getting enough sleep, that ain't gonna move the needle a lot, mate. It's really not. So, like, if you're looking at the foundations, then Adam, what are the foundations that we need to have in place to be able to perform, and how do we get them to be consistent?
So the main place to understand is adequate energy availability trumps any other giant set, superset training system. So having the correct amount of energy based upon your training volume for that day available to you is the biggest difference maker in ensuring you can perform. So what I mean by that in layman's terms is eat enough bloody food, stop trying to get jacked and lean at the same time.
We see this happen a lot, right? So often someone will go into a diet phase, they strip everything out, calories get dropped, expenditure goes skyrocketing. 4 weeks in, they start to feel that performance drop off, and all of a sudden they think the next thing they need to do is to go even harder, and then they don't, and then they crack, and then before they know it, they're secretly binging Mackies at 11 o'clock on the way back from the gym or whatever, you know. So committing into that phase, very, very important. Having a deadline for a phase. So when that issue comes about, because I'm probably sure you have seen it a lot, not only with coaches that you've helped, but like clients now that you're working with. Like when that point comes about, what do you need to do when you're in a diet phase? Let's say, for example, you're in a fat loss phase, you put yourself in a calorie deficit. Okay, it's working, you're seeing weight off, but then boom, that you hit that wall.
So the first thing we look at is the time that the person's been in that deficit. Okay. And if we understand, okay, cool, you've been doing this for about 6, 7, 8 weeks. Well, let's look at the other markers in their life as well. Because if the weight loss has plateaued, has hunger gone up exponentially? Has stress increased exponentially? Where's energy levels at? And how much are you sleeping? Those four markers there, alongside the weight loss stool, gives us an idea of how how much hormones are impacting the person's journey in the fat loss. It's all very good for people to go, oh yeah, leptin and ghrelin and all that sort of stuff. There is no, it's that moment. There isn't that. It's so subjective to the individual. So, and let's be honest, nobody's going to a bloody, no one's getting blood paneling every 4 weeks, right, to understand whether, like, it's not happening. So you have to go, well, what's good enough for me to understand that potentially something's changed? Well, let's look at those markers. And when you look at those markers, it tells you the big picture. You say, okay, well, your weight loss has stalled, where your energy levels are through the floor, your hunger levels are through the roof, you're sleeping less, your step count is there because you're a committed individual and you're trying to do the thing. But we can see that actually the impact on your central nervous system, things like fatigue and DOMS, well, they're becoming far more prevalent. So is that now the time to have a conversation with that person and say, right, we can do a refeed, we can do a full diet break, or we can address where we actually think we are versus where you want to be.
Hmm. Yeah, that question of like, we might need to take a break. You might need to be having a very realistic understanding of what is going to take to push to that next level, whether you're willing to do that or not as well. Because there's no doubt when those markers do come in play. I had it recently actually. I went into a diet phase for 4 or 5 weeks, and then it just started curving off, and I was like, well, I stopped being able to wake up as early in the morning. I started getting mad cravings. I was like, all right, let's just cycle this back, go into maintenance for a week. And I've done that. Like, and as of this morning, as I've gone back into the diet yesterday, it's dropped into new lows again. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're back on track and getting going. Like, and it's just like part of the process. You need to understand this. Like, weight loss is not linear, especially fat loss, because they are two separate things, weight loss and fat loss. And that's what I try to tell people is like, your aim is fat loss, not weight loss. So if you just want to see the drive the scales down, wicked, lose a bunch of muscle, just go starve yourself and smash cardio for 21 days, and yeah, you'll be in a hole hormonally that'll probably take you 6 weeks to get back out of. Like, there's a difference. You want to look better and keep the muscle or not. When we're looking at those, yeah, 100%, man. Like, it's contextualized, and we know that hormones are always lagging behind the actions that you do with nutrition and performance, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. And when you look at how you mitigate that, well, going into any journey with the right framing of what that journey is sets you up for success or failure, right? You can go into that with, like you just said there, oh, dry scales, dry scales. Okay, cool. Go eat nothing. Don't bother taking on protein. You're gonna drop weight. You're gonna look like a bag of shit, but you're gonna drop weight, right? And but when we go into it with a really specific protocol, okay, here's your deficit. We're gonna run it for 6, 7 weeks. Then we're gonna address where you're at, both based on those markers we said, and then we're gonna potentially have a break if needed, and then go back into another deficit if required to achieve a level of leanness that you want. Within that, there are fundamental frameworks that you have to adhere to. For example, keeping the deficit as far away from training as possible, so to minimize the impact on your training. Yeah, you're going to be hungry the rest of the day and your recovery won't be as good, but I'd much rather you still be able to hit RPE 8 on split squats because there's segment number 5 of your training session than RPE whatever you've got left because you're really tired.
I've actually had that before when I've been driving to a gym that's about half an hour away from me. I try to go there once or twice a week because it's a really good bodybuilding gym, when time does allow me. And I was driving on the way there, and I'm like, I'm hungry. Like, this shouldn't be the case. I had my normal food, my normal squares bar before and everything. I was like, Jesus, I might need something a little bit more right now. It's not on my plan and not on my segment. But now when I look at my enjoyability and my intuitive now of understanding my body and understanding how it responds, I'm like, oh no, I definitely needed that, because otherwise performance is going to go off again. I'm going to feel worse. I'm going to feel like that's crap. And obviously then that demotivates you even more about what to do later on in the days and weeks coming. Yeah, there is an aspect, and I've been through this where some of those sessions are going to suck and it's not going to feel nice, but you should do everything you can to mitigate that from a performance
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, because the end goal should always be, especially for long term, muscle retention, like long term, 100%. Like, if we are losing muscle, not only is that going to make you not look as good, not perform as good, but the data we have on long term effects, I would say even more so females than male, but I don't even want to separate them really, just overall in general. Like, if you go down that pathway of having less muscle, it leads to all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Metabolic, cardiac diseases.
Yeah, 100%. You look at people who just go so aggressive in their mind frame of what they want to do from a fat loss phase that they ignore everything else. Like they go, well, it doesn't matter that I'm destroying my hormone balance. It doesn't matter, like for females, menstrual cycle's out the window. It doesn't matter about any of that. What matters is it says this number on the scales. And like, no, that's also rubbish, because you could look in the best shape of your life, be shredded, have cap shoulders. Your quads could be solid. Everything could be really, really powerful, and that
Mm.
number could stay 250 kilograms on the scale. It wouldn't matter. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference. But people intrinsically think, well, they look online, people will destroy their overall health for something that actually they don't want. They just think they want because they've seen people online looking a certain way. One of the big things I get very frustrated with online, and I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, is when I see people like who are in shape and clearly, and they're showing off their pictures and like, look at me and blah 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 with the perfect downlighting, and then they go, oh yeah, so the discipline to show up every day, blah blah. Dude, like you're putting a picture out that you've worked hard for. Granted, I get that, but when you're selling that as, well, that's what I look like all the time, you're just lying. You're just lying. But people go, well, I want to look like that all the time, which is why they never think it's enough. Because you look at a photo, like there are photos of me, and I go, bloody hell, that's awesome. I look really good there. I'm like, yeah, but when I'm walking around normal, like, I'm not tensed, I'm not toned, I've not got down lighting, all this stuff. And I think it perpetually feeds into that cycle, which is why people do what they do around deficits, because they think that's what they have to do, because they want to walk around looking like that all the time, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a very good point there. So like Instagram is a highlight reel,
Mm.
100%. Like people need to remember that people are only showing you what they want you to see a lot of the time. Although I think that has started to get a little bit better, a little bit more
Mm.
transparency, a little bit more honestly around things. I definitely try to post pictures that I really don't like the look of, the way I look. Some of my check-ins, I've done it this morning, I'll be posting some of those. Like, I don't like the way I look in some of those, right? But I'm coming down from a bulk into a little bit of a wedding prep. I've already lost like I don't know, 6, 7, 8 kilos, but I won't really look really lean until I lose another 4, 5, 6 again. And it's like the realistic, like, look, I'm not a genetic freak. I don't run at super low body fat levels. Like, I have to go back up to 15 to start feeling normal again. That's where my body's set point is. I can adjust that over time, and I have done without, what are your thoughts about, like, body fat set points and things of that nature? Because I think they can be adjusted over time, but they just require long-term programming of work to try and remove them down and get used to it bit by bit.
The clue you just said there requires long-term planning and like the periodization of that. So many people go into it and go, well, that's what I'm going to do, and it's going to be fine, it's going to be perfect, and all I need to do is sit into a deficit and I'll be all right. No, no, you don't. You need somebody who is, one, qualified, two, has the experience and knows what they're talking about to guide you along that process. It's like me walking into a baker's and saying, "Yeah, I got you. I watched a Paul Hollywood video once. Like, I know what I'm doing here. Like, it's obviously rubbish." So when we look at things where people use things like body fat set points, the biggest thing I can say to anybody listening to this and to yourself is like, use people who know what they're talking about and have done it and programmed it and know how to know the problem areas and where things stick and why things stick. Because
Mm.
otherwise, you try and do it yourself, you're going to be there 4 weeks in going, well, why am I not? Why is it not? It's supposed to be here and it's not there, and then you get into that cycle of, well, no, my body's reacting this way, so I just need to eat salad, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, there's a few things there, like knowing what rate of loss you should be trying to aim for is interesting. Then programming that out so you know how long you're going to be taking in for that diet phase, or bulk as well. And we'll speak about bulking shortly. But then also realizing that yeah, there are going to be weeks where you don't get that rate of loss or things do stall, and there are reasons for this, and anyone who has a good level of understanding can kind of point towards that. Like, I don't pretend to be like all knowledgeable. I think the more you know, the less you know, unfortunately. And you just get really, really good
Yeah.
at certain niches as well within certain bits. And I think it takes a very I want to say like humble, but also like understanding mind to go, all right, cool. I can't learn everything, but I'm going to get really, really good at this stuff here to help these people. And that's where niching down actually comes into it. And depending on what you like, if you like CrossFit, if you like high rocks, if you like endurance running, if you like strongman, if you like powerlifting, whatever you like, go learn specifically about that and how nutrition and training and recovery applies to that. And that's how you become an expert in your field. And that's how you actually create a living that you have that passion and you enjoy about. Not trying to be a jack of all trades, just trying to say you know everything about nutrition is just ludicrous to anyone who has like a 1% understanding of nutrition. Like it's absolutely ludicrous. You look at someone like that. It's the same with anyone that speaks in like certainties as well, right? Anyone that speaks in certainties is an idiot
Yeah.
and shouldn't be listened to whatsoever, which is good. So if you had kind of like a baseline for people to try and go into a fat loss phase, you know, proteins, carbs, fats, hydration, the basic kind of nutrition principles in a fat loss phase, what would they be if we could summarize this?
So, this shouldn't be new to anybody. Effective protein intake anywhere between 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. That's the nice sweet spot, right? Nailing that first and making that super consistent is important. Current science suggests timing is bullshit. Overall intake is the best thing. However, good luck eating 180 grams of protein in one sitting without your stomach being in shit state. So spread it out, right? Muscle. People talk about the anabolic window. It's not 0.05 milliseconds after you finish your bicep curl, and hopefully people know that, right? It's the 24 hours afterwards. It's the 48 hours. It's the consistency of intake. So point number one, nail that protein intake to minimize the possibility of losing muscle mass. First point. Secondly, carbohydrates. Keep the deficit as far away from your training as possible. Prioritize pre-training feed, and if you have the calories, intra-training if needed, and then the post-training recovery meal, right? So when we talk about pre-training feed, the baseline to begin is 40 grams of fast-acting carbohydrates, usually from dual source, sucrose and fructose, because they use two different pathways in your stomach to be activated, and therefore you get a faster absorption rate or a quicker, not faster, a higher level of absorption, sorry. Still happens over an hour. If you've got the calories, I said intrafueling, something like cyclic dextrin, even a Lucozade Sport's going to do that. 30 grams ish, depending on what you're doing. And then that post-training recovery meal. Now I've kind of bastardized this, right? But I know that it works. The 3-to-1 carb to protein ratio actually talks about fueling for performance within endurance events. However, a 3-to-1 carb to protein ratio within 90 minutes of finishing a training session is also going to be really powerful in replenishing glycogen and topping up that protein intake to be utilized immediately. If you can do that, if you can go right, adequate protein, adequate carbohydrates around training windows, keep the deficit as far away from possible, because the rest of the day you're going to be eating high voluminous fruits and vegetables to take away the deficit. You're going to cover off micronutrient content. Then the big one that people don't expect me to say because I'm a nutritionist is go to fucking sleep when you're supposed to. Get some rest, right? Because all of this is for nothing if you're not sleeping effectively. So for me, they're the fundamentals: protein, carbs, and recovery.
Cool. Yeah, very good point. Because my last guest on this was actually a sleep specialist who's a scientist inside the NHS for sleep, and he was like, "Yeah, none of anything else matters." So he goes, "This is why I do what I do." Because, and his name's Chest. I'll give a shout out again. He's very very solid on that. Nothing else can matter because none of it will last or be able to last if you don't get sleep in throughout that. What's your opinion on fats then? Running high fats diet or minimum fat that you should be intaking when you're in a fat loss phase?
So this is very subjective to the individual. I would say go no lower than 20% of total calories to be fats, just because I want to make sure, one, satiety and feeling good and eating food, right? There's a reason why fat's added to food. But two, the endocrine process and how your body absorbs nutrients and pushes it through. We don't want to impact how the nutrients are moved around the body. So having an adequate level of fat at the lowest end, I would say 20%. You could, and people have gone lower, right? I've seen people go as low as 15 to 10% of their total calories, but I do not believe that's sustainable for a serious deficit. I believe that that could be done for a quote unquote rapid fat loss phase for 4 weeks to gain a thing, but you still then have to go back up because the the way fat obviously utilizes in the body for what it does of transporting nutrients, for those who don't know, is that fat is hydrophobic. Think of putting olive oil in water, it bubbles up, right? Does the same in your bloodstream. Well, that what it does is it wraps around cells, it wraps around nutrients and transports them to receptor sites where it needs to be. Because if that wasn't there, well, it just disperses straight into the blood, and you then don't get muscle glycogen. You just get extremely high levels of blood glucose, which is a problem.
Toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not good as well. We go back to basic biology. Obviously, outside of every cell has a cell membrane, and that's made of fat, and that
Yep.
allows certain things in and out. That shouldn't be there or should be there, depending.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, awesome. I've always gone on the assumption about 50% of body weight and lower is quite considered low fat. So if I'm 106 kg this morning. If I was having less than 50 grams of fat, like that starts getting quite low now. And that again is only indicative for a short period of time before I'm probably going to have to either have a fat reload or like up calories a little bit more and run a little bit higher fat. I'm seeing good success with high fat diets where we strip carbohydrates away from anywhere par the training cycle, and keeping protein and fats high. It seems to be quite easy. Carbs are always demonized. We don't know why. Like we know why, but like there is no legitimate reason why that
Why?
actually
Yeah.
happens. It's all then tends to be with like, yeah, as soon as you have carbohydrates, we know that's going to attach some water in. We know you're going to weigh more in the morning as well. And if you do that later on at night and then weigh yourself early in the morning, you're end up for a head fuck. So
Yeah.
especially
Exactly.
if you operate for the scales. So wicked, man. Thank you for that. So we got some basic details there. So if we flip this script now and we look at hypertrophy and we look at muscle building, what again, like we're probably going to go through the same foundational things here, but what are some of the things that you would have an athlete doing that is trying to pack on as much muscle as possible, like a bodybuilder?
So when it comes to hypertrophy and what I think people do, I'm going to start with the mistakes that I see and I'm going to solve them. All right. So dirty bulking becomes such a thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna eat loads of food and I'll get loads of muscle. No, you won't. You're gonna gain ridiculous amounts of body fat. You're gonna feel terrible. Your training's gonna be poor, and you're gonna be quote unquote suboptimal. Things like under eating on rest days becomes a thing because, like, well, I'm not training, so I don't need that amount of food. Yes, you do because you're still in a recovery cycle. The anabolic window still exists in that sense. We spoke about previously. High volume of protein in one hit, whilst the science says it's fine, what it does digestively is a problem, and therefore that impacts how you are for the rest of the day. And potentially you're having a massive protein hit in the morning, then training, you're not going to train as intensely. And then the big one I think people do in a really poor way is they ignore fiber and gut health and micronutrient intake. They think about hypertrophy, they go, well, I just need protein, I need carbohydrates, and therefore I'm going to train and I'm going to eat food and it's going to be great. Well, actually, when we look at what we need from a micronutrient perspective, things like zinc, things like magnesium, things like vitamin C, things like vitamin D, these become really important for how your body just functions, right? And so zinc is obviously a big driver for increasing testosterone. That's a whole nother podcast. So let's not do that.
Important.
Okay.
That's very important, especially for all the guys out there. If you're looking to build more muscle and your test levels are not, I hate using the word optimized, but as best as possible, leaving gains on the table.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But that doesn't mean go spend £10,000 on TRT. It means do consistently the things really, really well. Take on
Hmm.
board a good amount of zinc in your diet. Take on board
Especially if you're natty.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. If you're natty, taking TRT kind of goes against that.
Yeah.
There is obviously my belief increasing testosterone. The biggest thing that people don't do is adequately fuel. Okay, that's the biggest driver in good levels of testosterone in a male body is adequately fueling. So obviously going deficit phase, that's against that. But from a from a bulking phase, from a lean muscle bulking phase, you need to eat as much food, and then you do need to sleep, and you do need to train, and you do need to get outside. You do need to do all the things that people think is boring. But that is so important because when we talk about increasing testosterone levels, well, we know that that's going to be one of the biggest drivers of you gaining muscle. Okay, so let's talk about nutritionally, like how we would then what I would do. So I focus on this in a bit of a pyramid structure of like the things that we need to focus on. The bottom of that pyramid is calories, and I've spoken about that to death. You have to eat adequate level of calories for what you're trying to do. Aiming for anything above 0.5% of body weight increase per week is a lie. Okay, because you're just gaining fat. We know the amount of muscle you can gain through a week of solid training. Yes, you're going to gain fat, but going for higher levels of increase, you're just kidding yourself. So calories need to be sufficient to support, I would say, anywhere between 1/4 to 0.5% increase per week. That's what I would suggest.
With that, we've seen the emergence of main gaining these days quite a lot as
Mm.
well. What are your thoughts on this? Because I have some thoughts on this, and I've listened and spoken to a few people on it as well. And I really believe that if you are new to training, and this is where that context of whoever's in front of you really does matter, right? If you're new to training, there's nowhere in hell you should be trying to main gain whatsoever there, right? But if you start looking at more intermediate or advanced lifters, that's actually where that body composition can improve over a longer period of time, depending where again you are, where your fat levels sit naturally, so on and so forth. So is that your understanding of this as well?
Yeah, because you can't recover from volume you don't fuel for, right? You can't if you're trying to I'm going to train really hard, but I'm going to eat at maintenance. You're not going to be able to recover from that volume, right? You will eventually just create higher levels of inflammation, more likelihood of injury, more likelihood of poor results in general. Well, it's not more likelihood. You will get poor results, all right, because you're not committing to one thing or the other. Like actually, the standard cycle of bulking 6 to 9 months and then followed by a 3 to 4 month deficit planned specifically, we know is about there, right? We know it's like stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Like actually it works. There is no super secret system that Arnold Schwarzenegger's not told anybody about. He wrote a book, for God's sakes. Like all of it's in there. So it's just I think that when it comes to people talking about main gaining is because they are so afraid of what they will look like if they commit to a bulk because they don't want to gain body fat. In actual fact, I'm going to be very careful. In fact, it's a rite of passage because you know what it feels like,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
If
mistake
you
you have to make, right? It's a gym tax. I that's what I say. It's a gym tax. Like you bloat out too much, you put on too much excess body fat, performance goes to crap, hormones go to crap, and you go, well, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, exactly. And then you learn and you grow because, like you said, people who are new to the gym have a low training age, have a lot of fear about what they're doing. When actually, yes, they can gain a large amount of muscle very quickly because they've got a low training age, right? It's newbie gains or whatever you want to call it, right? Like it is a thing because they're hitting PRs every week, and it's so they do need to commit to it. They do need to drive forward because actually the benefit for them long term will teach them more about themselves and how they react than just middling through the mire of maybe I'll eat a surplus here, but I don't want to do too much. Like I think
Mm.
it's just a bit much, really.
Yeah, interesting, man. Like, because I definitely look at that from like anywhere between 1% and 5% of a surplus is really, really nice to be there. We don't need as much, like you said. Excess body fat gain is not the objective. It's going to take longer. Yes, you're going to look softer. I look softer now, but when I'm going through posing now, I'm like, oh, I feel like I put on a little. I look a little bit thicker. I look a little bit chunkier. Like that's what you want, and you got to commit and embrace that. That you're not going to look super shredded like these Instagram pictures we talked about, and then you are going to get a bit soft. But guess what? Look at Jay Cutler. Look at Dorian Yates. Look at all the big guys. That cutting and bulking cycle works, especially when you do it well. Like obviously that's to the nth extreme, but you know there's limits on that. And I think eventually what you look like is when you start off here and you're a little bit overweight or a little bit underweight, depending on that, you kind of do this on the way up and then the same on the way down. And then eventually when you do that, you should work your way back up again as you build more muscle tissue long term. And that's where I get zooming out. So you've got calories at the bottom of the pyramid. What's next?
So what we look at next for me then is protein. Okay, like, and I'm going to say something, and you're going to know where I've got it from. All right. When it comes to hypertrophy, nutrition is the last lever you pull. right? So caveat everything I'm saying with that. You need to be if you're not training properly, like
No
if
stimulus, no adaptation.
no no stimulus, no adaptation, you're just gonna put on fat. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Okay, so we've got calories, then we've got protein, and I think when we look at the protein, obviously we've spoken a little bit about it to death about what I think people need to be doing, anywhere between that 1.6 2.2 grams across the day. Um, but then above that is carbohydrates. Okay, so in levels of importance to me is calories, protein, carbohydrates. Again, keep the carbs. So keep the deficit as far away from training as possible. That's I will die on that hill. I will. Sorry, I'm not even talking about a deficit. Sorry, I'm getting confused. But then carbohydrates. So when we talk about hypertrophy carbohydrates, it is then the non-negotiable pre, intra, and post. Even if you don't feel like you need it, taking on 50 grams of fast-acting carbohydrate from a scoop of cyclic dextrin will allow you to perform at a higher level later in training, especially if you're there for 90 minutes, right? Because we know training to a high intensity, you'll deplete glycogen stores very, very quickly. Like you will. You may not feel like it because your heart rate is peak and then down and then sits and then peak and then down. But the reality is we want you to be able to achieve the stimulus that's being prescribed. So we have to intra-workout carbohydrates. So pre, intra, and post become non-negotiable from a carbohydrate perspective. So when we look past that, for me, it's sleep. Okay, you could argue, right? You could argue, but I won't go too much into it. Obviously, you've had a specialist on, so just know that I think it's really
Support
important.
this.
Yeah, I endorse this message. But I'd also say there's things we can do from a nutrition standpoint. Okay, so a nice protocol I like to have for anybody to increase the quality of sleep from a nutritional standpoint is some form of sleep tea thing in the evening combined with zinc and magnesium um, as a 30-minute before bed supplement. I also like to add a kiwi before bed. Personally, I like that because of the melatonin bump up, the fiber, the fact that it's going to just put some nice carbohydrates into your glycogen. It's going to be fed in throughout the night that just keep things moving nicely. That's a good place for us to be. Um, as we move past sleep in the pyramid, micronutrients is next. We've spoken about zinc, we've spoken about magnesium. Vitamin D, vitamin C are important here. Obviously, I don't know about you, but the sun is starting to come out. Like we're starting to see that. That doesn't mean you don't need to supplement with vitamin D. Okay. Vitamin D should be something you supplement year round, especially in the UK. Okay, because it just the penetration of the sun isn't strong enough. If you live in Dubai, I mean, you're probably holed up in your toilet with your ring
Yeah.
light.
Not at the moment, not at the moment, not as the time of recorded this, no, but like in general, yeah, like yeah, it's very, very different. I know that I supplement with about 2000 IU pretty much every single day, regardless.
Yeah, yeah. And we know that the upper levels of toxicity for vitamin D supplementation is around 6 to 9 months of consistent 7,000 RU a day. So over 3 times what you're taking already. And that's a lot. There's no requirement. But 2,000 RU a day is a solid hit. I like to be anywhere between 2 to 4. I think is a good place, depending on the person,
Yeah, yeah.
and how they react.
Yeah, a lot of my guys from South Asia, like or
Yeah,
Africa, I will put on 4000 straight away
yeah,
because I'm just like
yeah,
it makes it from the educational standpoint we have here, it's probably better off putting those with high dosage if they don't get any kind of nausea or sickness or anything like that from that. 100%.
yeah. And then, like I said, things like vitamin C, all it's very difficult for me to say specifically which micronutrients that people should be taking. It's the equivalent of taking your car to a garage, saying it's making a noise. The mechanic looks at the car and goes, "You need an oil change." So I'm always very, very cautious of saying, right, okay, we must take these things because you might be on a good level,
Yeah,
pushing
different
you over the
scale, right?
top.
Or bell
Yeah,
curves, and we know that people sit outside of that, and that depending on like your diet and your overall health and how your body metabolizes or absorbs vitamins and minerals, we know that people can have different issues, especially females with iron being anemic. guys with like magnesium tends to be good. Potassium seems to be quite a big one as well, depending on how processed their diet is and things of that nature. So yeah, it's like we know there's a scope of like zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, omega threes. Like we know they're the big four. No, like they generally in all scientific research seem to be the ones that pop up the most, but it doesn't mean there might be other things you might not be too. I think if you're ever in doubt, just get a blood test done by a reputable company. Just go get it done. Like, and don't try and go through an NHS. You'll be there for ages. Like, just pay the money, get it done, invest into your health.
Yeah, and to caveat as well, like when we're talking about going to a like actually go somewhere, don't please do not buy one of those like 80 quid at home testing kits because I just think they're a crock of shit. Like I the my frustration is they send you an at home testing kit
Hmm.
to your lounge, which is
Hmm.
not a sterile environment. You take your
Hmm.
finger prick, and I'm not saying you don't know how to do a finger prick, right? But you then
You
put it
might not
back
have
in its
washed your
thing.
hands.
You might not wash your hands, right? Like you put your fingerprint back into the sample. Yeah, great, awesome. You give it back to John, the Royal Mail guy. Last time I checked, Royal Mail delivery don't do refrigerated services. So the moment you take that blood sample is just degrading, degrading, degrading.
Hmm.
Do they then lose it in the system? Is it then hygienic? Like all of these things,
Questions.
I
You have
I
questions.
I can't put. And when it comes to something like blood sampling, you're paying money to get a definitive answer.
Hmm.
So just go somewhere and get them to do it.
Yeah. My recommendation is actually through our mutual friend, Mr. Simon Dunn, is like the UP one on MIDI checks. And you can get that done at certain sites for an extra 35 quid to get the blood drawn out, done properly. So if I was going to do one like that, I would look at where's the nearest place you can go through Medichecks, buy the test, get the test, take the test, go get it booked in, get it done, get it done properly.
Yeah, and you then know with a level of certainty, happy with these results. And but then, and hopefully you're on the same. In fact, I know you're on the same page with this. That result isn't, oh well, I've definitely got low this. No, it's you in that exact moment. What's happened for you for the past
Snapshot.
2 months? Yeah.
Mm,
What like how's your sleep been for the past? Oh, I've not been sleeping. Oh, great. So we know that the it's probably not going to be the best. So take it as a snapshot and go right. What's my plan to fix the problems I'm seeing? X, Y, Z. Okay, then I'm going to
hmm.
do it done again. It it becomes very. I think there's so much in the fitness space now where people go, oh yeah, go get blood panel and done. And you get coaches who go, yeah, get blood panel and done. It'll tell me all the information I need. What information is it telling you, mate? Like, please tell me what you're looking at because I don't think. Because last time I checked on the level 3 PT, there isn't a module about analyzing blood sampling, right? Like, so
Yeah, definitely not a functional blood panel. Like
yeah.
Mr. Jake Carter's not popping up and doing functional health wear in level three. Like it's not happening.
Just turns up at Pure Gym, like, here you go, mate.
Jesus, yeah, man. So yeah, so with that, coming to the end of this now, like, what's some of the fitness myths that you wish would die, like especially around nutrition that you wish would just cease to exist?
Yeah, I think my biggest one is carbs. Okay, as we said at the start, I'm a performance nutritionist, right? I work across the spectrum of performance sports for athletes, and when I see people come to me going, "Oh, well, I can't have that many carbs," like, well, you can, and we will get you there. Like carbohydrates. If we can in the video, can you just overput Ryan Gosling talking about glucose? Like, can we just do because like yes, that's your brain, but it's your body's preferred source of fuel, right? The moment we try and hack the system by not doing carbs or the reality is hypertrophy is driven off like glycogen availability. Like, and I'm saying this to somebody who definitely knows what I'm saying and know how bullshit it is. But when people go into gym, they go, "Oh, that's too heavy. I can't lift that." It's not because your muscles aren't strong enough. It's because you don't have adequate energy availability contained within those muscles. The glycogen is the force driver. Like it allows you to
Hmm.
have the energy to exert the force. So please bloody eat carbs. So that's my first myth is
Yeah.
that
Yeah, the way that you could potentially look at that is like the muscles are the fuel tanks, but then the carbs are the fuels going into it, and
yeah,
you can only operate that kind of like that way, and that's the way I see it.
exactly. Yeah. No, that's a great analogy. And it's just yeah, for me, carbs are such an important thing. The next myth is that you don't you should just take supplements blanket. You should just take supplements because so my issue with supplementation is that you can walk into a Holland Barrett, right? And say if you're new and you're new to gym and you're like, well, I've been told I need creatine, I've been told I need omega-3, I've been told I need zinc and magnesium, I've been told I need a vitamin D. Four solid options, right? But how quickly do we then go, well, what about ashwagandha? Well, what about glutamine? Well, what about reishi? What about and you're like, right, can we just park supplements for a minute? Because you're jumping for that, but you slept 5 hours last night, and that's the longest you slept in a month. You've been eating McDonald's 3 times a day for the past 3 weeks. I promise you, dropping £100 on some supplementation, whilst make you feel good like you're taking control of your journey, doesn't solve the problem, and the problem is everything else. Because supplementation isn't going to fix your shit habits. It just isn't. Solve the habits, then layer. It's why, in my pyramid for hypertrophy, supplementations are the tip of it because everything else is far more important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I sit down in the morning and I'm having my oats with my flaxseed, my chia seed, my dark chocolate, my blueberries, my protein powder with a little bit of honey and cinnamon on top, then I take my supplements after. I'm not thinking, well, thank God I took my supplements. I'm like, no, I just want my
Yeah,
banging breakfast. Like, yeah,
yeah,
I've had these little bits on top, like my vitamin D, because I know about sunlight and I'm trying to optimize. But my breakfast is the same every single day, like that. And that nutrition bowl, depending on the varying amounts of oats I have, depending whether I'm in a cup or if I'm in a bulk, that's the only thing that really changes. Like,
yeah, exactly.
and we just
Yeah.
manipulate accordingly. So I think that's a great segue to say thank you to Adam for obviously popping on today and giving us some nutritional knowledge. What's happening for you in the future, and where can people find you?
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I've got a really cool year. I've got a lot of events I'm supporting. So as I said, I work with performance nutrition. I do performance nutrition for athletes. This year we've got things like the Red On Ultra, the Backyard Ultra, which I'm going to support. I've got Ironman World Championships for a couple of athletes, World Championship weightlifting, World Championship strongman competitions at bodyweight class, and then all the triathlons and high roxes and all that sort of stuff in between. So for me, I'm really excited about this year. You can find me on Instagram at Integrated Nutrition. You'll know it's the right page because I don't know. Oh, it's a podcast. I have a giant ginger beard.
Yeah, it's hard to miss Adam. He has a big bushy beard. Yes. Awesome, man. That sounds like a really, really exciting year that has a lot of potential, not only from athletic performance and, podiums or middles or performance indicators for them and obviously the athletes that you're taking towards that, but just to do some really cool shit and be around some really inspiring, motivating stuff, right? I bet that'll fire you up to get going yourself with this as well at the same time.
Yeah, I'm competing myself at a very low level throughout the year at different events. Affex is my main thing, just because Hyrox isn't hybrid. There's no weightlifting in Hyrox. I'm not interested. So yeah, Affex is my thing. But yeah, it's good. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. Until the next one, ladies and gents, I will catch you soon.